Hey folks, just a heads up before we get into this episode of the Meditations on Movement podcast. Myself and Adam sat down for about 2 hours almost discussing this topic. So I decided rather than giving it to you as one huge entire episode, that we would break it down into 2 episodes. So we're going to do a part 1 and part 2. I just wanted to say that before we get into the actual meat and potatoes of the episode itself. So here is part 1. Basically what we're discussing is pieces of advice that we would give our younger selves. So take from it what you will. We're just discussing things that we had gone through in the past, and obviously more recently, things that we have come across that have maybe hindered us, and what we would do in some way to overcome them or make them have a little bit less of an impact on our practice, on our training. Stuff like that. So I'll tie in at the end of the episode just so that it doesn't end abruptly, but here is part 1. Hey folks, you're very welcome back to another episode of the Meditations on Movement podcast. Today I have Mr. Adam O'Sullivan with me for this episode. Today we are going to be discussing pieces of advice that we would give our younger self. I thought this would be a good idea considering the last episode that we were on. There was moments of clarity that we had, certainly from our trip to Vienna, the year and a half, 2 years that we'd spent there, general sort of learnings over that period of time. And it makes me consider like going back in time, even to when I was a kid, growing up playing sports, doing various things and seeing, okay, what were the things at certain stages that I maybe wish I had done more of or less of, or the things that I now know that I see as big pieces or big nuggets of information that I could have given myself. And obviously having a chance to discuss it with Adam here, hopefully we'll come to some points of clarity, some nuggets that are potentially there for you to listen to that might resonate with you as well. Okay? You're very welcome back.
Thank you very much, sir.
How are you, sir?
I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good, yeah. Ready.
Good.
Ready, yeah.
The before we get onto the topic of conversation, we would like to bring the attention to myself and Adam's
There's actually
socks.
a vote. Whose socks are number one? As in Pokemon or mushrooms?
I can put this up as on Spotify as a poll, so
Yeah.
you get to vote. Make sure you're checking out the video
Oh my god.
and have a look.
Wrecking the place.
Have a look, and you get to vote.
Yeah, who is on point with their socks today? Please tell us.
If there is also a moment of distraction, there's someone outside cutting hedges, and it's a terribly strange sound.
Mm-hmm.
I'll leave it at that. But
Yeah.
hopefully
It's not.
it doesn't
It's
come
not.
across.
We're not farting. That's
Yeah,
it. It's
we're not farting. It's
not
the
us.
hedge trimmer. I
It's the
promise.
hedge trimmer behind. Yeah.
So with a topic like this, I feel it's relevant to go back to when you had first started moving in general. I know it's very easy to just think of it in terms of, say, like, you know, for us starting off as personal trainers, it's very easy to see that, you know, like the access to the gym, or when we started in the gym as like our first steps. But obviously movement happens at such a young age.
Yeah.
Like I know for myself personally, I had got involved in lots of different sports. Like my parents pushed me into so many. So different field sports, stuff like that. What was kind of the first few things that you maybe got into then?
Athletics was the first thing that I was exposed to like when I was a kid, but like just overall, like, you know, it's, if you're looking at movement, like climbing trees, we live beside a forest, so we created you know, a different world in the forest. So it's like, that's a different side to it, that it would be like whatever, some of the stuff that you see now that's very popular on Instagram. You know, there's people climbing trees and just natural stuff. I think that's something outside that's more kind of creative. But in terms of sports and stuff, athletics, sprinting is kind of natural to me as a kid. Long jump, high jump, things like that. They're the early kind of exposures to sport. But yeah, I think overall, like, if you're looking at it more broad and more open and actually play, which is something I'm reading a little bit about now and how important it is, I kind of look back at, let's just say, the athletics wasn't as impactful or kind of as enriching as one of the years me and my mates we we went through the forest and started creating huts, and we pretended to be warriors. Like, this is something that we did for 6 to 8 months straight. Like, we sharpened bamboo sticks that we found in the forest and got sticks and just were like practicing javelin, which I was good at in athletics, but showing it in a game kind of thing that we made up.
Yeah, like completely different context.
Yeah,
Almost.
like we found doors in a skip and we started practicing target practice.
Yeah.
In the forest. I was just thinking about this the other day when I was writing, and like we got good. Like we got good. Like, we were throwing the javelin at, like, you know, bullseyes, but we are also throwing it at each other at some point, and it's sharp. So we'd run and throw it, and then you know, pull back and then grab the stick as it's going by. Like, it's obviously really dangerous, but when I think about it lately, I was like, if you took that now and applied some of the things that we've studied in Vienna, like there's throwing skills in there, running through forest, trail running, a lot of these things, but it's like disguised as play, you know.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
That's something I've been thinking about lately, because while I'm reading this book right here, Play by Stuart Brown. I'm smiling through a lot of this book. Yeah. And, like, it resonates with me a lot, because I think for movement, that side of it, like, I was done a lot of gold medals and I was good at sprint and good at all that stuff. It came naturally to me, but it wasn't like it was the thing for me. It was more like, you know, you get involved in a sport or whatever else like that. I think I generally kind of start pulling outwards to more extreme things like BMX, skateboarding, the forest. That was one example, but they're the early years. Sorry, I went off on a tangent there.
No, you were right to, like, it's funny you bring up that concept of play, because I think it's something I've been considering a lot lately as well, where like I told you the story the other day of being in a gym environment and seeing, like, I would have gone through this when I was at a certain stage in what I was doing for my work, where I would have heavily or put a lot of weight on the assessment side of things. Yeah. And it's relevant. It's necessary. There's a certain degree of assessment that needs to happen, but I feel the level of assessment that's done in tandem with the perceived level of knowledge by those doing the assessments. Do you know, they're going thinking like, oh yeah, I'm going to assess this person and tell and show them that how great their shoulder is or how bad this part is or whatever. And, you know, it's very likely in the first place that what you've done is, you know, a weekend course. You know, not to say that there's anything bad about that, but it's more like, it's where does level of expertise comes with time in terms of putting it to action, putting it to play. But it's such a defining thing for someone to get an assessment from someone that is, you know, within the environment is perceived as being, okay, this is the person with all the knowledge, this is the guide, and to immediately go into a setting and have it where, like, all your faults are pointed out. It just,
you're slightly tilted to the left.
Your pelvis is rotated,
and then they go around telling all their friends, I'm slightly tilted to the left.
I am slightly tilted. That's all I am. That's all I will ever be. I am misaligned. But am I right in saying that, like, it can be such a weird thing to initially come into. You know, I'm sure someone does realize, like, okay, I'm not, you know, I don't have a certain level of freedom, and maybe this has given me a little bit more clarity as to, like, what exactly needs to be addressed. But it's such a stark contrast to what a concept like this in terms of play gives us, and what we had from such an early age. Like, when we were kids, there was no consideration of how does my shoulder feel. And I know it's a stupid way to think of it, because most kids aren't adults who, you know, sit regularly and have all of these issues. But is there a possibility that we can introduce that within the early stages to keep someone's interest, I certainly think there is. There's a way of regressing things back with potential issues without the need to like label someone straight away as like, oh no, but my shoulder is, my shoulder is fucked. I can't do this. Versus like, what about if I give you options? Like, what if I give you different things to play around with, different concept, different whatever? Like, you're more than capable of doing it. It's just yours looks a little bit different than this person who does have full function of their shoulder. You know?
Yeah, there's also a thing with it, I think, where your attention is going. You know, like, I think, like, what's a good example? It's like, you know, you might be in a little bit of pain, or you're kind of fatigued, or something, you're stiff, or just general tension in your system, and then you're playing a game of table tennis with your friend, or you're doing something like that. You've range that you just didn't know about. That you're jumping to the side and you're doing like a Cossack squat. You know, like, where did that come from? And it's like this diffuse kind of mode happens, I think, when you've taken yourself out of that more kind of like, I'm limited, or I've got a bad shoulder.
You're not sitting
or
there thinking all the time, I'm constricted.
Because as soon as that play clicks in, it's like, where is it? The attention's gone off it, and now it's onto this thing, and you're fucking too flooded with fun. Do you know? Like, I think now I can't put to words what exactly that is, but I'm reading into it as much as I can to know. But that is an interesting situation, I find, because it happens some of the days. You're like, oh Jesus, I was in bits, and then I go do this thing, and you're like, where did it go? Where did it go? Like, but I think back to what you were saying was the assessment thing. Was, I think we were both speaking about this recently of why are we assessing let's say a cold body straight off the bat? They are important, right? They are important, but if somebody doesn't move regularly at all, it's like, why not start them off with some sort of games, or get them moving, or just enjoy it? You know, when you go to a dance class, they're not going to assess how you move. They just start to move and dance. You know, it's obviously a different.
Their assessment is, have you got any glaring issues that I should be aware of? Is something banjaxed? And that's an understandable assessment. Just to go, okay, cool, I'll be cautious whenever we do something with the shoulders.
Yeah, exactly. You know? Yeah. Like, they're checking in some way, but I think, I don't know. It just depends on the person, obviously. But I think overall, it's like, maybe we should play around with things a lot more first, and then do that later.
Yeah, because, you know, the assessment at the start, it's almost like any form of movement that you get the person to do now becomes an assessment. You're seeing how someone is taking the information in, how they're trying to perform the task that you've potentially given them, and as a result, you're now seeing, okay, what's this person's quality of movement like, without immediately labeling them, immediately pointing out a flaw before they have a chance to go and at least figure things out for a period of time, because you're going to see a huge improvement. It's kind of like what you're saying in terms of the cold person. I think what you mean, like, you're saying something along the lines of someone who is completely inactive to then come in to suddenly be active, right? It's like, of course, there's going to be a change. Was 100%. That initial assessment even valuable to some degree? Yeah,
of course. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, is it like, because if you, it's like a good example would probably be the couch to 5K. I think that's an amazing thing, because it's slow, incremental, just tip away at it, walk to then a little bit of a jog to walk and do that. And anyone sticks to that and does the 5K, I think it's amazing. Yeah, I think it's a really good thing. And there's just no in between. There's no kind of like, right, you know, you go to run, just you go off the bat and you try to go for 5K and you're like, geez, I'm shit. I'm unfit. I did 5K. I'm dying, and then that's it. It's like probably the same with like movement, or you know, you're not going to move very well if you haven't been, and then you go into it and just expose yourself to a few different things, and then you're like, okay, just, you know, bit by bit, tap away at it, have fun with it. If you're not in this is where I probably need to stop myself. It's like, if you're not in excruciating pain and there's not a lot going on with you and you're just not moving, then we might not need the assessment at all. Like, it's a more kind of open approach to it, just of experience and movement as you start. For sure. You know,
I think that we're getting ahead of ourselves to some degree in terms of the way in which we're approaching this. Like, it's almost as if by looking back at when we were kids, there's almost there's more advice from that stage to take into account now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That like, it's not like I need to give myself a piece of advice when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Because I was just going and doing and playing.
Yeah.
Like, if anything, I was doing the right thing then.
Yeah.
Not that I'm doing the wrong things now, but
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
I potentially need to do more of the things that I was doing then. You know, it's hard to look back on that and be very critical.
Yeah.
Right? It's, while you're saying, you know, like, you observed via play that it was more rewarding, more juice, more squeeze from it, rather than the purely, you know, as it starts to get into organized activities like sports, different things, that's when potentially something gets a little bit lost. Right? Like, how much energy did you get from the playground, where, like, you know, you'd have your 30 minutes break for lunchtime, whatever it is, and like straight away you're out and you're just like, you're exploring the playground with all your friends and all that sort of stuff. Like, that on its own is, it's chasing, it's moving, it's crawling into the bushes, it's playing around with whatever things were available to you is on the playground. It's like, it's all things at once in some way. That, like, maybe that's what we're missing now, certainly. You know, and we've taken this into account with some of the things that we have started to expose ourselves to, more task oriented things, more play oriented things, more adventure related activities. It's getting back that energy from the practice, you know, if you want to call it that. If you're you know, right then it was just, this is what I'm doing, it's play, it's just having fun, it's natural.
This is the thing that he talks about in the book, is that trying to describe play kind of kills it. You know, and I really
defining it, like,
because it's like, it makes it weird. Do you know what I mean? And he explains it anyway, because some guy went to one of his seminars and he's like, I don't get it, you know. And he's like, what's the point in that? And then he's like, if I have to describe it to you, like, it's gonna be shit, but I'll do it. I'll do it anyway. And I love that, because it says a lot to the essence of it, like the your own raw experience. And I think I like that, because you have to just go and experience it. That's really it. Like, it's like when we were out there. So how did it happen? How did we turn into warriors? Like, one of the lads threw a stick, and you know, he threw a thing and he made a noise. And there was, I think, that movie Apocalypto was out.
Yeah.
So then we made up some words like Muchikaya, like we made up these words, and then that sparked a little bit of creativity, and then it went in and it went from there. And it was like 6-8 months in the forest every day, like, you know, just like, it was mental. So it's just one of them things of going, if we there's no reason, there's no conscious, like, it was unconscious. It's this pull that comes out, you know, and then it's there, and it's fucking, I think that's something even with what we're doing. It's like, it needs that layer. Like, you can't go, like, so I had it yesterday when I was telling you that I'm doing a session, and I was like just pissed off with it, whatever. And I know now from before that if I don't go and do something, you know, like an exploration, or if I don't go and play
something outside, away from the
structure,
gym environment,
if I don't break the structure, I slowly start to die. Like, that's just me personally. If I don't go and play or do an improv or do something now, I will slowly start to, and it's just, I know myself better now, going, if I don't do that, I'm gonna fall into trouble. So I was like, today I was like, I wonder if we can squeeze in something before we sit down. Like, I think that's just really good to know, because then you're like, okay, I can stay structured and be an adult, and then I also need to address the kid that is in there going, come on,
let's have a bit of crack, let's play, like.
Because, like, now we're going off. Yeah, well, I probably actually it's the same topic.
I think we're looping back into the fact that I think I wanted to start off by looking at early stages. But if anything, it's actually like, what we're doing is, everything that we're doing now is to try and get back to that early stage. That level of excitement from movement, because it's as we start to become more conscious adults and start to organize things a lot more, there's a negative aspect of that. While it's great to be able to say, like, all right, we organize things into an assessment, into a fully functioning system, you know, you apply that system to a person in need, and as a result they see progression, they see change, they see benefit. But the it's almost like the direction is in the wrong way. Yes, you've got better and improved certain metrics, but like, the maybe the level of enjoyment, the level of contentment, the
Yeah.
energy that you actually get from the thing that
From
you're
the
doing
session or that.
isn't that huge,
Yeah.
and a staleness starts to develop, as you've
Yeah,
kind of said.
yeah, absolutely.
So if anything, what we're doing right now is that now becomes our
maybe conversation.
maybe that
and
becomes
thing.
our point of reference.
Yeah,
that the early
big
stages
time.
are, and it's like what like as you've said with athletics, with the things that you started to do then, like for me it was more team sports, I guess. Like athletics, like what was athletics for you? Athletics was javelin,
Yeah,
sprinting.
javelin, sprint, 100-meter sprint mainly. I was fairly good at. Long jump, high jump. Yeah, they were the main ones that I was fairly good at. Like through primary school, like generally I was good at them. On and off as well. Like it was kind of like I went. Remember, I remember going to competition. Like I did competitions here in my hometown, but then going to for more national kind of thing.
Yeah.
It was my first experience with the fear of competition or like backing down from it. I got the stage fright or whatever it is when I was going there, and I just said I can't do it. My ankle's killing me. It was my first kind of thing where I backed away a little bit, like. But it was one of them. I don't know why I brought that. It's funny how that popped up. It's one of these things that it kind of, that's the side that I didn't really want. You know, I liked it wasn't like I was competing against anyone. I liked that thing of just me.
Yeah, there's a
there.
task.
Yeah,
I
that's
have to
it.
do something.
Yeah, and it was a part of my day, but the competition and going and thing, that's just, I was gone. It was the
Yeah.
first experience. Like later on, it when I was a trainer and stuff, that helped me see these moments very clear when when you're meant to go at something.
Yeah.
Like not competitively, but you're meant to step into like a next phase, or
like,
there's an opportunity coming, or there's something here, you know, because it's a very small subtle moment. But that was it was mainly athletics, and then, you know, I fell off the path for a while and did other things.
So if we take that as an example of the point where you probably need to give yourself a bit of advice,
The fall
like look,
off.
you know, it's that whole thing of like each thing led to different stages, so it's hard to sit and say like, oh, you should have done this.
Yeah.
But like, if something like that, if that same moment were to come up now,
Oh yeah.
maybe that's a better way to think of it. What would you currently do in that situation?
Yeah. Well, I'm not. I whoever was with me wasn't the best coach. Let's say.
Okay.
They didn't understand the subtle layer of fear and what was happening, so they didn't approach it in that manner. That if I was me and I was there, I would have said, look, it's okay, I can see you're afraid, like it's okay to be nervous, it's okay to be afraid. This is
it's
new,
a totally normal part of the process.
100%. Yeah. So like in that moment, I would have comforted myself and been like, look, it's all right, this is normal. Like, and then give an example. If I was coaching myself, I would have said like, this happened at this point, and it's one of these situations, it's not that big of a deal. You know, this is meant to be fun again. The competition side of things is even meant to be fun. It's meant to be a moment that like you enjoy. Like if you look at anything else, like if it was a stage or whatever else it is, it's meant to be a moment that there is lots of these, you know, you're nervous or you're fearful, but in stage and stuff like that, they'd say like nervousness and fear and excitement, or nervousness and excitement are the exact same things. They're the things I would have brought in straight away and said, you're actually excited or you're nervous, and it's the same feeling. That's what I would have said, like, to that moment. For sports, definitely, like it, and I seen it when I worked with kids, was just going, it's okay, like, you know, this is normal. You know, I think that's something you learn later on in life, isn't it? You just kind of like, when you're having these experiences that you think are your own, you know, it's like there's a book for absolutely every experience you've ever had out there. You know, that's it. Yeah, that's what I would have coached me better.
Yeah.
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 That's it, really.
But that's it. Like the guide or the mentor is there at those stages to give you, for some it might be perfect. It's the perfect piece of advice to switch. For others, it's like, it causes a moment. Like for I suppose for you, it seems as if that moment then led you to, maybe it was that direct moment, or it was a series of moments like that led you to step away from it, probably.
Yeah, 100%. Because I think that's what happens with fear, in situations that when something goes wrong and you back away from it. Like I fell in front of you, like, and then to not go back climbing again. It's not allowed for me now. Like I see that as that thing of, I know somebody who was horse riding and they've got kicked over the bar and landed on the bar and they get back up and sort the horse out, like, but they go back, and that's the thing. I know somebody else who fell off a horse and then they thought about you know all the situations, and then they never went back again. But that's the thing, that they
never
love.
really addressed
The thing, and it wasn't a bad fall. It was just a scare. But it's kind of like they're missing now their thing that they love. They loved going on the horse. They loved it. So I think it's worth that situation. Like, but back to what you were saying is more like, them moments are so crucial to either have somebody there that says it, or you obviously then later on, like, you learn how to manage that in the moment, which I think a lot of fear work has helped me anyway, to just go, stop for a sec, and then just step. Just, it's all right. Like, you're going across the bridge, or you're going to the height, and then just seeing everything that comes up, and then still going forward. But there's such crucial moments, because if you step away, there's a ripple effect of that on decision making and everything else. Like, you might make them decisions more than as a result of, do you know what I mean?
Coming up against discomfort and not like
stepping into it.
Yeah, stepping into it, exactly.
Yeah.
Not backing away as a result.
Yeah.
Like, knowing, like, there's a healthy amount of it, right? You need to know where your limit is.
Yeah.
But still know that, like, something needs to be done.
Yeah.
Like, there needs to be some form of exposure to the.
Yeah. There's some that you can't. There's some you can't go by. That's some of them. Like, if you're looking at some of the heights and stuff like that, some of them just, nope, not today.
Yeah.
But like, it's like, yeah. But there's moments like that. That's not a big deal. Like, if you've a kid, and they're gonna go and get up and do they do their plays and stuff like that as kids and stuff like that, and like, it's natural. They're gonna be shitting it, like, and then it's like, you need to be a coach. You need to be a coach and be like, look, it's okay, it's all right. And even if they get it's just to let them know, like, people are gonna get their words wrong or whatever it is. Happened to my nephew recently, and he was absolutely he was devastated after it. But it's to show the person or whoever's in front of you or yourself that this is normal. Go look for it. Go search it on YouTube. People do it all the time. You know.
The thought comes to my head of, like, the way it's like teaching a kid to be brave and courageous. I can just imagine, like, a 4-year-old being like, I am brave. Like, as much as that is, like,
in the mirror.
It seems kind of like corny and childish, but really that's what you're
100%.
even as an adult, that's what you're kind of teaching yourself to do, is to, like, be brave and resilient within the scenario. Like, even though it might come out as that, the child needs to be like, I am brave, I am strong. Sometimes you do need to be kind of like, okay, I am brave and I am strong.
Like, high
I
five
need to
yourself.
go and do this.
That's the thing, when you're doing like, we're doing like AMRAP or something like that for backflips, something like that, and I high five the wall.
Yes.
But it's just me. It's me high fiving myself. Like, I'm just like, let's go, bro. Let's go. I think it's really important. I think about that a lot. Like, I think that since I was Valencia, like, I sat with it and I was like, I want to be a dad, and that brings into what a teacher and a guide and what they are, and what the type of dad I want to be. Like, I thought about that a lot, and this is a big thing, is like, you have to be very sensitive, I think, to really be able to see their little world and how it's gonna be created.
Yeah. Like their frame of reference being so
Yeah.
fresh and coming up against these things in their
Yeah.
purest form.
Yeah.
Like you're coming up against fear
Yeah.
in such a like even
Primal.
I think about it in the sense that's like you are such a tiny vessel,
Yeah.
and it's like being full of fear is like that's a lot of shit. Like,
Yeah,
do you know,
yeah.
like that's a lot.
And it's
To
it's real as
contend
well.
with.
That age,
Yeah,
you can
yeah,
get
yeah.
squished. Like, you know,
Mm.
we can take a good bump. Like, but
Yeah.
they generally are. They're little blobs.
Mm.
You know.
Yeah. Vulnerable
Yeah.
blobs. Like
Yeah, there's vultures out there. Yeah, but yeah, I thought about that a lot.
If that was at that stage, then so the idea of organized sports was kind of the next stage maybe within movement. As things started to develop for you, then what was kind of the next tangible stage that you had then in terms of movement?
Well, you give us a little bit about your childhood and some experiences that first, because we're going to talk about both, right?
Yeah.
And then we'll go on to because imagine that's the childhood kind of era, and then we're going to go on to more teen and later on. Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah. So I guess for me, I suppose I would have had similar scenarios to you where play was such a big thing. Like I remember climbing trees, making bow and arrows, those kind of things being such a natural part of just what you were doing. You know, playing chase in the yard, that sort of stuff as a part of school, and even if there was like sports being done, it was never like it was for fun. It was never. There was always a certain stage within primary school, like when you're that age, it's never anything serious. I mean, even look at like I thought about this the other day with like kids playing football. Like you see them and they're all just running towards the football. It's like they don't know what they're doing. They just want to play with the ball. You know, it's like you have to teach them at a certain stage to be like, this is how we play the game.
Everyone's taking
It's
the
more
shins off each other.
yeah. Just running after it.
Yeah.
But like that's the fun part of it, I guess, rather than kind of like, oh, I'm going to sit back and I'm going to be more tactical. Like obviously it's necessary for
of course,
the sport.
if you want to get good,
You know, but yeah, it's a like for the organized sports then came in multiple forms. Like I was certainly glad that I was thrown into them. There's loads of exposure to like that. That's why you throw kids into sports. You know, it's coming up against those moments. But I guess as adults, we need to be aware of that when it does come up for the kid. It's like this is the first time they have been exposed to fear. They have been exposed to like moments of losing. It's like, what does that actually mean to a kid for the first time? It's like, but the whole thing was to win the game, and it's like that whole adage of it's
then
not,
you
it's
turn
not,
into Dave Goggins.
Yeah,
You're a loser.
but
that's real.
Those are the moments where it's like you see people go off with those sort of intents. It's like if I'm sitting
that
here
owl lad thumping the head off another owl lad at the side of the pitch.
It's like if I want my kid to become a winner, like I was watching the David Beckham thing, and like he seemed to have this whole attitude of like his dad was just never satisfied. Do you know, like always wanting him to do better. So as a result, he didn't really get much praise, and it was David Beckham never got much praise. Okay. So like he'd be playing great, but it was always as if his dad was kind of like, no, more. And while you look at a scenario like that and you say, look, he was one of the best footballers in the world. At the time. Exactly. You know, of course, you look at that example and you go, oh, that's great. We all need to do that to some degree. But like,
but that comes at a big cost, I think.
Yes, for sure. And I think hearing even some people's personal stories about being on that side of it as well, where maybe the parents did push them loads and they weren't satisfied, rather than it being like a deal with, their objective was, I want my kid to be an athlete. I want them to be great at sports. Versus like, what is the value within sports that it's teaching my kid? Because it's moments of exposure to cooperate with others that you will come up against. Like you will lose, you will win. And it's knowing like, okay, how do I actually deal with that? How do I, if I am winning all the time, how do you teach your kid to not be too confident and make sure that you're respecting the opponent, all of those kind of things, because they become obviously aspects of life that are very, very important. Like learning to if I'm on a team, I'm now learning how to cooperate with people in a workplace, to cooperate with other human beings, things that I'm eventually going to be exposed to
if you're
in
winning
later
for
life.
a long time as well, and then you lose, like that's such a big moment. I'd say, it's so
for
crucial,
sure.
because
And how do you approach that then as a parent? You know, as a mentor to the kid that's then going through it for potentially the first time. Obviously, you know what we're saying in terms of the emotive response that's now happening. You know, it's so fresh and it can be so defining for them as well. So what are the things that you can do in that scenario to just give the person a little bit of breathing room to not take it as seriously, when potentially that's what you needed when you were talking about your scenario, right? That it's like big fear associated with it, and like, you know, that whole thing of trauma responses, that, you know, it goes back to potentially when a similar scenario happened, you know, that if your immediate exposure to something is like in a fearful state, it's most likely now that when you go into those scenarios,
it's gonna be
that fearful state is gonna come up.
it's like matching. It's like, you know, it's what is this, a Gen Z kind of saying, match the energy, bro. Like it's a real I think that's a Gen Z thing. I don't know what generation, but match the energy. Like it's cheesy, right, or whatever, but it is real. So it's like that. Like, so for me, I was in a vulnerable place at that moment, and the person who was with me dealt with it in an insensitive, kind of more direct way, where that person needed to match it in a way, going like, cool, it's okay, like it's grand. I can see that you're not experiencing. I can see you're fearful, but to know that that coach or that person needs to actually know it. They need to actually experience that, and then also really, treat it themselves.
Empathize with the person in front of you.
That's the bigger thing, is like, you need to know that situation in yourself, be able to treat yourself with that same kind of thing that you would offer, because if you've never done it or experienced it yourself, then you can't offer it. So that's the bigger thing, that it wasn't like, you know, it's not that I feel bad. It's not that I feel bad about that situation. It's that I feel bad for the person, that they don't have that capacity to be able to offer the thing, because they obviously can't for themselves. So that's a bigger picture. I think when you look past all of it, you go, well, what is all that saying, you know? Because you first need to be able to experience it to teach it, and then, you know, vice versa. So that's a big one, I think.
So I guess what we're trying to, if we were to pull out like a main point from that, we were saying the very early stage, it's certainly a lot about play, and it's keeping that maybe as the target that we should probably have, most likely even now. As it comes into organized sports, maybe it is those moments of, you know, like we thought about the aim of this podcast, or the title of this podcast being, you know, pieces of advice that we would give our younger self. Like, what's maybe the piece of advice to give? Like, certainly I think about it now myself with organized sports. Those were the same things. Like, it's the, like, I remember one experience being like captaining my hurling team, and we won, but even then it was as if there was weight on my shoulders that I had never felt before, as a result of being the captain. And it's like, you know, it's under 10s, it's under 11s, it's under 12s. It's like,
you know, might be influenced by all of the other.
You take it as such a huge thing, do you know? But it's kind of like, it means a lot to you at that moment, you know.
Well,
even
nobody's saying it out there, probably. Like, as I didn't do what you're doing, like I but I'll talk about that in a minute. But it's like, nobody out there most likely is lighthearted. Like, they're not lighthearted, or they're not thinking about play, because it becomes this thing that this is serious, and it is serious, right? There's a lot at stakes, right? There's a lot at stakes, but for 10 years of age, like, it's like somebody needs to be in that and says, like, where, lads, that, like, you know, this is important, but also remember that it's a game. You know, like, nobody's gonna die. Like, you know, like, I don't know what way to say that, because I wasn't in that kind of field, that more team sports, and I just think there needs to be somebody on the team or management or whatever it is that reminds people that, because that's where athletes go so far. You know, they excel, but then also it's like, remember, like, that this, remember why you started, or remember
Yeah.
what it most likely wasn't because you wanted to dominate everyone on the field. Like it wasn't like that. You and your friends started playing a game. That's
Yeah.
where it started, I think.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, it's just interesting seeing that side of it as to what's the way in which everyone can get the most from that.
Yeah.
Because the context really for me with this is everyone starts off with that play. And eventually it becomes some form of organized sports
Yeah.
to where people most likely get their activity. But then past that stage of organized sport, it's a bit of a free-for-all, right?
Yeah.
Some people, like, organized sport relates a lot to schooling systems.
Yeah.
Which is very, very good that they're attached. You know, it's education in line with some form of physical education as well. But then past that, it's kind of
That's where the hit workout starts.
this is where the chaos happens. Like, it's
Yeah.
where some people continue on with something,
Yeah.
others have a journey ahead of them in terms of finding something that they enjoy.
Yeah.
Others, you know, discover different aspects of life that maybe pull them away from physical activity.
Yeah.
That, you know,
I think this is the best part. This is the best part. You
Really?
know, because
Yeah,
it's the
yeah.
hero's journey then. I really think that that's the best part.
this
It's,
that moment of
you're gone off.
because it's funny, right? Because it
chaos.
is that point of it's a little bit more autonomy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
So it's now my decision to go to do a sport. It's
To
now
follow
my
something.
decision to be active. It's my decision to go into a new career
Yeah.
or whatever. And there's it's a lot at that time, at
Yeah.
that period of time,
Yeah.
right?
And that's the curiosity side. You know, it's like I like that, right? Because if we're going now,
Before
Yeah,
we go on,
yeah,
the idea would be, the thing that I was going to say then was, what's the way in which the most amount of people can get value from sports to be able to potentially continue on in the best way possible.
So
Because if what we're looking at right now is like the competitive aspect of sport being both positive and negative, you know, positive in the sense that those that are going to stay within organized sport become more involved in athletics and be athletes.
yeah, builds
That's a
strong
positive
will.
thing, but then also there's the negative side. Their ego, their sense of self, all becomes related to whether they win or lose in
Yeah,
their sport,
yeah,
and that
yeah.
can be catastrophic for some.
Yeah,
So how is there maybe a better sense of lightness to
yeah,
that doesn't become so much of an identity for them, yet they can still perform,
Yeah.
yet they can still win, they can still prosper, do good in that activity.
I can only say from the outside, because I didn't do team sports. Like,
Yeah.
I dipped into it a little bit, but I can only say from the outside that what I missed out from that is there's great things like being a team player. You know, like communication with others. You know, being part of a community. They're all things that came later.
Yeah.
That it's like I see that now as like this team sports are great.
Yeah.
In that sense, they build that connection with other people and kind of, you know, communication and kind of team building skills, and they're essential for, you know, later on when you're working with a team or
Yeah.
you're working with a company, and it has a lot of pluses. That I think from the outside, it's like if I could go back, I'd dip into it a little bit more, like, you know, but I was very much geared towards the kind of isolated
Solo
stuff,
things,
solo against one-on-one or whatever
Yeah.
it is, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
But the plus side of it is all that stuff. The negative side is, like you said, like win or lose, that's only it, and that's very much I from the outside, it's encouraged a lot. Like, you know, it gets a little bit more like that as you get older. It's very much like it's win or lose. But I don't know how. It needs to come from within the sport. Whoever the teacher is or the coach needs to have some sort of lightheartedness to it as well, remembering that this is also forming their psyche, they're forming their identity, and a lot of these things that, because like if they win and then they crash, it's like them things can go very bad. Like you see it with some fighters, like it's death, like it's real death.
Yeah, very.
Or alcoholism, or, you know, goes somewhere, like, you know.
Yeah, like it's when you read into these
I'm just gonna turn the heat on.
these stories of different athletes, they
I think this actually would be too loud. Yeah, well, it's okay. Sorry.
do you want to turn it on, like we can pause this for 5 minutes?
No,
and
no,
get back into it?
no, it's okay. Yeah.
The idea that when you read a lot of athletes' stories, you know, they may certainly at a professional level, like I've listened to lots of different footballers when they retire. It's very interesting hearing the amount that, you know, need to get their kicks from something else. Like certainly, like imagine what it's like to be in a stadium, you know, hundreds, potentially potentially hundreds of thousands of people, you know, at those larger scales. But you've got thousands of people chanting, screaming, giving you abuse or giving you praise. That is, you know, you score a goal, that is going to be a very energizing feeling attached to what you're doing for your career, for your life, you know, for your 100%. Sense of purpose. Those that achieve a lot then come out of their sport and they need to get that rush. You know, it's addictive in its own way. So as a result, they need to get that from another source, you know, something else. So they either get into gambling, they get into drugs. Alcohol, drugs, like the likes, because they're now missing something that they were getting. You know, it was an external thing, and it's very hard, obviously, in that scenario to be very grounded, right?
100%.
You know, you get the advice of intermittent rewards, like you're supposed to not reward yourself every time that you go and do something. So you make an achievement. The idea is to kind of take it and be like, okay, cool, this is fantastic. It is what it is, but I'm not going to praise or reward myself massively for this. But intermittent, meaning that I should reward myself every now and then. And 100%. At least that keeps it helps in that way of progress. And
we spoke about this in Vienna, and it was really helpful for like the QDR and handstands and stuff like that. Like, but it's tricky, isn't it?
But in that scenario, like how do you when something like that is so energizing, how is there a need to almost like intermittently reward yourself in that scenario?
I think,
but I feel like we're obviously going with all of that stuff, right? To keep all of that in mind, I think maybe it's even a topic for another conversation, something we need to read into a little bit more, in the way that sport is maybe is great for the athlete, of course, in terms of achieving positive and negative aspects, but it's like how can we look back on our time within sport, you know, forgive ourselves for our mistakes, the things that we maybe did in those sort of scenarios, but take the lesson from it going forward, the most value that we can, so that it helps me currently. It's I don't feel like I need to necessarily give myself tons of specific advice, but maybe just the general piece of advice is, like you've kind of said, like a little bit less tightly held to the compassion, to the result.
It's compassion to failure.
Thing that would have had to have happened.
Or perceived failure. It's compassion to the thing that didn't go well, or even if you didn't do it. You know, if you didn't do the thing that it's like looking back and going, I didn't do that thing. I wish I did this, and you know, whatever else. In that moment, you didn't do it, and it's okay. You know, like it's like if you're doing a jump or a heights or whatever else it is, it's okay that you didn't do it. It's just in the moment, coaching yourself. You know, I think that's it. In the moment, just coaching yourself. I like, take any situation. You need to see something to its end, right? Like that. So from this moment, I don't think I need to do it anymore. Like if I was going back, I would say it probably would have saved me later on when I exposed myself to things, because when I was up against them things again, it was very harsh, because that was the coaching I got. Let's say I was harsh to myself, and it was more just going like, that's not how to deal with it. If you want to win, then, and you want to bypass this thing, it's like, then you need to ease into it. Like you know, what's the word, not tasting the water, dipping your toe. You know, just basically you need to step in slowly. That's the thing with these moments of kind of freeze or fear or whatever else like that. It's a slow step in, and compassion is going to be key. That's it.